Welcome to the Brave Podcast. My name is Connie Jacob. I'm your host, and this month is teacher convention season here where I live. And when I do these teachers' conventions, I often do a check in. I teach educators, leaders, parents, people, anyone who's in a relationship with somebody else. I teach them a tune in, a tune out process. But I wanted to share with you just a check in of where people are at. And one of the questions that I always ask is, what is your resting emotional state? And I have teachers fill out little post-it notes. Maybe you've been in a session where I've done that. I wanted to bring up a couple of emotions that for the last 3 years, these have been the top players. These ones have not gone away, despite our efforts. We're all feeling these things. I've been doing these post-it notes, keeping track of what are the highest emotions that have been stated. And so what I did was I tallied up the top emotions that we are feeling over the board. I hear this from leaders, I hear this from teachers, I hear this from students, I hear this from parents, hear this from people. These are the top ones right here. So the top one surprised me. It's tired, like as in sleepy. Very close second place is fear and panic. Both of those together. Other ones that were very close behind were frustrated, angry, stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, worried, confused, and sad. Some honorable mentions that came up that I see across the last few years is indifferent, bored, rejected, pressure, confused, emotional, disappointed, guilt, and hopeless. These have not gone away. These have only stayed and in some ways increased. And so what I think right now would be so helpful is if I could use this podcast as a way to help us really figure out how to attune in, because I think we can all identify with the emotions. What I do is I get whoever's participating, I get them to put them up on the board so that they can see that what we're feeling is very collective. These are the emotions that our culture is holding right now. And then what I ask is, if that emotion was a sentence, what would it sound like? I want to read you out some of these post-it notes of what these emotions sound like. I'm so busy. Why is this not done? I don't think I'm good enough to do this. I am afraid of saying or doing something that others might say is stupid. I struggle to wake up in the mornings. How am I going to reach my June goal with my students? I have too much to think about and care about and too little time to do all of it. I am so confused and tired right now that I need to step away and become connected with like-minded people. I don't know how to handle this or process this. I can't get myself to do this. I don't know the future of my family, and I don't know if I can make my dreams come true. Am I doing good enough? I have no motivation. I don't know if I have what it takes. I can't do this. I am done. I don't know if I have the energy to continue at my current pace, and it makes me anxious for what my future looks like. I just need to get through this day. I can't take any more judgment. I want to run away. I don't know how to cope. If you could name an emotion that all encompasses, what comes to your mind? I know for me, when I hear all of those statements, I just hear shame. Shame says, you're not good enough. You're not going to be able to get this. You don't know what you're doing. Everybody else does, but you don't. Shame is a bugger. And until we name it, it actually has a lot of power over us. But when we name it, now all of a sudden it's in the light and it hates the light. So naming our emotion brings emotion out of chaos. And as Dr. Dan Siegel says, now we tame it. But we need to take that even further and identify thoughts, because those thoughts are subconsciously swimming around in our minds and they're dictating the way we behave. And so the third step that I bring anyone through who does this attune in process with me is identifying what are our behaviors that we're noticing. And it's really important not to judge these behaviors. So here's the behaviors that I heard: not wanting judgment and running away, being impatient and irritable, being on the defense and blaming others, jumping to conclusions, zoning out, detaching, being antisocial, shaking. I find myself thinking and doing other things to try to give me a break from my current anxiety, fleeing school, being angry and bitter, wanting to check out, using fear, control, and punishment as a way to relate. I look up and sigh. I raise my voice. I'm frustrated and I have a short fuse. Being snappy to my kids and my husband, not taking time to relax or do things for myself. I anger easily. I'm impatient and I'm not enjoying life's little moments. I'm quick to react and pick fights. I'm procrastinating, sleeping, and not wanting to do work. I have emotional outbursts. I'm trying to do too much. The reason for me sharing these with you is, first of all, if you have thought, felt, or are doing any of these types of emotions, thoughts, behaviors, you're not alone. The human experience is collective. And collectively, I have not seen anything on a post-it note that has shocked me, other than when I did this with a group of truck drivers. And the emotional resting state of one of them was horny. And they had to put that on the post-it note. And I think they only did that to throw me off. Ah, that was quite memorable. I'll never forget that. I might have gone a little red. But collectively, we are feeling, thinking, and behaving all of these ways. As a mom who's been through some stressful situations in my home, I can identify with almost every single one of those post-it notes and those emotions. What I found helped was, as I began to just every day name, what's my resting emotional state? What does it sound like as a sentence? And what am I noticing about my behaviors? What I noticed happened over time was that all of a sudden I started to learn how to manage me. And that was key for my marriage. That was key for the way I parent my boys. That was key for me having relationships with coworkers, being out there working with sometimes difficult people. This became really foundational for me. If I could manage me, I could handle anything thrown at me. But a lot of times we just don't know where we are. We can't manage what we don't know. If I don't know what my emotions are, my emotions will rule me. If I don't know what thoughts are dictating certain behaviors, then I'm just going to keep behaving a certain way. And now I have guilt because why am I stuck in this pattern? What's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. We are having a human experience. And as soon as we can identify these things, it unlocks certain revelations, it unlocks certain ways for us to realize some realizations that we can move forward. But this is where we start. And you'll often hear me say, human beings are not strategies and tools to be applied. They are people to connect with. And how do we connect? We don't connect with the top 3 ways to manage that person's anxiety. No, we don't connect that way. In fact, that disconnects. What connects us is felt emotion. And when we can connect on an emotional level, that's creating empathy. And empathy is where we start. If I can empathize with myself by naming emotions, thoughts, and behaviors, then I have the hope to write something new. And what I often will say is that sometimes this doesn't mean sitting down and journaling for 10 hours. This doesn't mean thousands of dollars of therapy. No, this is just deeply noticing my own inner world. And what I've noticed from there is that shame starts to lose its voice. It started to lose its voice in my life, and I started to take some agency over my home, over what was going on, what I felt was ruling me. I was giving the keys to my life to everybody else, and now I was taking the keys back, and I was beginning to own myself. And that is when I noticed a shift in my own life. That's when I noticed our home started to become more peaceful. That's when I noticed my work started to expand. And so this is where I bring people to start. And I love helping parents and teachers and workplaces figure out, how do we help people who are a little prickly? How do we help the ones who are hurting? We never send the hurting away from us. We bring them closer. But how do we do that? It sounds great. It's such a great book title, but doing it is hard. This is where I start. Now, when it comes to working with kids, whether you're the parent, whether you're the teacher, whether you have employees or people that you have to work with on the daily who might be anxious, might be struggling with depression, might be oppositional in the way they think, or they have ADHD and they're just really hard to manage. I'm actually doing a free webinar this week, and I'm going to be giving you all the keys and the tools that I used, but this is where I started. This was the biggest part, was really identifying my own inner world, because one of the pieces of my framework is peace in my heart means peace in my home, or peace in my class, or peace in my community. Wherever I am, peace in my heart translates out to somebody else. And right now, we don't have a lot of peace in our hearts. We have a lot of chaos. We have a lot of unacknowledged emotions, thoughts, and behaviors, but we can change that. We can do something about that. You are not helpless. You are not powerless. In fact, what I want to do this week in the webinar is I want to teach you how to be a powerful person who can make powerful choices for yourself, so that then you manage you. Because as you know, we don't control anybody else. We control us. But a lot of times we've just never been taught, how do we do that? Not only in the webinar am I going to give you some of these tools and keys, but I'm actually going to make it so that it's very simple. I'm also going to give you some key strategies in how to work with opposition, how to work with ADHD, and how to work with anxiety. But in the meantime, I hope that as you heard what other people are saying, number one, that you know that you're not alone. But secondly, that we can own our inner world. The brain is not solid, it's flexible, it can be rewired. The way we think can be rewired. The way we feel can change, but we have to acknowledge it first. Empathy comes first. Empathy means acknowledgement, acknowledging myself, acknowledging what other people feel, and noticing behaviors without judgment. Welcome to the human experience. You're not broken, you're not lost, you're human, but you get to write your story. And if I can help you do that, that would be a great honor, because your life is worth living, you matter, and who you are is wonderfully beautiful. Keep being brave.